And welcome to the Citizen Report. I'm Jonathan Shannon.
And I'm David Heller.
And thank you for joining us tonight. This newscast is real, in-depth American. And thank you again for joining us. We're going to start tonight with sort of a recap on the impeachment proceedings against President Donald J. Trump. And as of the recording of this podcast, we can tell you that in a vote yesterday, Friday, that is, 51 to 49, they have voted against allowing witnesses to testify, which basically, in essence, basically goes with precedent versus in past impeachment proceedings. And now if my understanding is correct, and of course things are very fluid right now, next Wednesday, the day after the State of the Union, will be the vote, which is highly expected to acquit President Trump of these impeachment charges. I've struggled in my mind about how to approach this, because there's really just so many different ways to look at this, and the way I've decided to go about it is a combination of David and I giving our personal thoughts and insights on this, and also providing some context, tying back with former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden and Burisma in Ukraine. Let me first get David. Let me get your thoughts on this whole, if I may use the word fiasco to describe this whole impeachment process.
Okay, so basically, this whole impeachment process has been a sham from the word go. Basically, when the people in the House, which is Democratic controlled, were running the whole show in the House, they basically got to call all of its own witnesses and things like that, but yet it would not allow Republicans to cross-examine or bring its own witnesses at all. And so, therefore, that made the whole impeachment process a partisan impeachment. And in fact, they didn't even go to court to, get the okay to start the impeachment process. They just, the Democrats just started the whole impeachment process on their own, and throughout the whole process, it's been a sham, and it's been partisan.
Well, they never had a vote to launch into the inquiry, as far as I know. They just decided to just on the whim do it, because after all, Nancy Pelosi, she runs the House, right? I mean, she's a one-man band, or I guess one-woman band. I mean, she thinks she controls it all, and that's just not the way the Constitution has it. She presides, if you will, for the lack of a better word, over the House, but it's the House, the body politic, that makes the decisions. Yes, you have these committees, but again, you have to have a vote, whether if it's passing a bill or a resolution or whatever the case may be. That is how you do these things. And she just completely, I mean, it just boggles the mind when you think about how they just rush through this whole impeachment stuff, and then when they get to the Senate, how they were like, "Oh, we gotta remove Trump right now. We gotta push this through right now." They want it done by Christmas. They wanted to pass it in the House by Christmas and all this stuff. And then when they get to the Senate, they wanted to slow it way down and have the Senate do the job of the House. And I actually have, David, if I may go ahead and say this, I actually have a transcript of the Constitution pulled up right now. And in Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, here's what it says. The House of Representatives shall choose their Speaker and other officers, and shall have the sole power of impeachment. Now that text is pretty, pretty plain, right? There's a lot of reading in between the lines, and a lot of stuff that happens by virtue of that. But here's the essence of it. All the stuff that leads up to impeachment, like gathering evidence, examining witnesses, all that stuff, that takes place in the House. But in or I should say, in Section 3, see, Section 2 concerns the House of Representatives. Article 1 is actually altogether concerning the legislative branch, but in Section 2, it concerns the House specifically. In Article 3, or I should say, Section 2 is the House. Section 3 is the Senate. And here's what a part of Section 3 reads regarding as pertaining to impeachment. It will take me just a moment to find.
And then real quickly before you get into that,
sure.
Trump, and let me just say this. Donald Trump, as of yesterday, made this tweet that I think is pretty true. When the whole impeachment process was in the House, the Democrats got to call 17 witnesses. 17 witnesses.
Yep, I saw that tweet actually myself too. That post.
And yet the Republicans did not get a single opportunity in the House.
Yep.
To call its witnesses, or even to cross-examine at all.
Well, David, Congressman Adam Schiff, he basically conducted these I don't know what you call it, these meetings or proceedings, whatever you call it. So much of it was conducted in a basement, in a basically a secret chamber. The Trump's legal counsel was barred from attending, and that I remember this from watching on the news. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there were Republican members of Congress in the House that were trying to go in there to see what in the world was going on. We have a right to know what's going on, and they were basically not welcome.
Exactly, and again, it was a sham, it was partisan, and everything else. But yet, when the Republicans turned around and gave the Democrats the same treatment that the Democrats gave the Republicans in the House, the Democrats were essentially crying, crocodile tears.
Yeah.
Essentially, is what they were doing.
Yes. I mean,
and basically they've been doing that ever since the whole impeachment trial started in the Senate. Which, by the way, the Senate is Republican control.
Yes.
It's not Democratic control.
Yes.
Like it is to the House.
Yes. And before we get too far away from this, I do want to go ahead and just read the excerpt from Section 3, Article 1, Section 3, when we were talking about the Senate. I read to you all earlier about what it says about the House. Here's what it says about the Senate. And I want you to first let me go ahead and reread one more time what it says about an article, or I should say Section 2 regarding the House. Here's what it says about the House. The House of Representatives shall choose their Speaker and other officers, and shall have the sole power of impeachment. Now, without context, that sounds like the House gets to do whatever it wants to do. But here's what Section 3, I keep wanting to call it article, it's section. But Section 3, here's what it says about the Senate. The Senate shall have the sole power to try, operative word is try, all impeachments. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. When the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside, and no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the members present. So, David, to basically summarize what I've just read from the Constitution, the House, yes, they do their stuff with they vote on impeachment, but that's not to say that when President Trump was voted to be impeached in the House, it's in the Senate where you either vote to convict or acquit. And every person in this country, David, has the full Constitution, God-given rights to the legal presumption of innocence until proven guilty. That is how our legal system works. That's how our law system works. And because President Trump has never been convicted, That has not happened. They say, oh, Trump's impeached forever. No, that's not true. If he's not convicted, and he won't be, because statistically that's not going to happen, he has the full right to presumption of innocence. And the way the Democrats have conducted themselves, it does grave violence to our Constitution.
Exactly. And, essentially, and I'll piggyback on this, the Democrats basically, they essentially said all along, since the whole impeachment process began, that Trump is guilty. Mm-hmm. Is essentially what they labeled him as. Because, who made a quid pro quo, and he wanted to investigate the Bidens and everything. And in the minds of the Democrats, they think that Trump can't do that. When, believe it or not, there was a law that a Democratic president named Bill Clinton
it's a treaty
signed in 1998.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Where it talks about the ideas and everything about doing a Ukrainian, investigating whenever, Ukrainians do something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yet that's exactly the very same law that a Democratic president signed 21 years ago is exactly what the Democrats now is impeaching a Republican president for.
That
just proves right there how hypocritical these Democrats have been throughout this whole process.
Yes, I mean the Democrats are David, I don't know what other word to use it. Some of these Democrats are point blank committing treason. I truly do, because they're trying to. They're saying. I said this, ladies and gentlemen. I said this in a previous Citizen Report. I said this in a previous episode of the Citizen Report that Al Green said that if we don't, and I'm not quoting him exactly, but in essence, what he said was, if we don't impeach this president, I'm worried he'll get reelected. That, I mean, they're not looking to uphold the law. Impeachment. Here's the thing. Here's what I'll say personally about impeachment in general. The act itself is very solemn, and two, you don't do that for political reasons. Yes, it's a political process, and it has political effects, but you don't impeach somebody because you disagree with them. You impeach because they commit grievous crimes, and the Constitution very clearly says what those crimes are. I believe it's treason. I don't have it in front of me, but off the top of my head, it's I think treason, high crimes, misdemeanor, something along those lines. My point being is this, and I know I'm kind of rambling here, but my point being is that the Constitution the Founding Fathers never intended for the impeachment to become something where if you have an axe to grind with the president because you don't like the color of his hair or something, that you're just going to impeach him. That's not how it works.
Exactly. Now, see, something like what President Nixon did in the 70s with Watergate, now that would be impeachable. What, say, Bill Clinton did in 1998 with Monica Lewinsky, that right there is impeachable. In reference to what Clinton said, quote, I did not have sex with that woman. Now, that is impeachable. What Donald Trump is doing with Ukraine, that's not impeachable.
Well, I think that here's my personal thoughts on Clinton, and I'm only going to say this to try to. I don't want to deviate too far from the topic, but my personal opinion is that what transpired with all that wasn't. I personally, at least in hindsight, don't really stand behind the idea of impeaching Clinton for that reason. There were plenty, don't get me wrong though, there were plenty of other things that were absolutely impeachable, and of which I won't get into. But, here's the thing. The Republicans provided a fair due process. The Democrats have done none of that. They're hypocrites. They really are. They talk about the rule of law. They talk about they make all these platitudes, and yet when push comes to shove, it is them that accost our rights, because our Constitution. Here's the thing: our Constitution does not give us our rights. Our rights come directly from God. Our Constitution is not to give us our rights. It is instead basically a contract with the American people to say the government has this amount of power and no more. And that is what the Constitution does. It provides our form of government, and yet they want to completely usurp our rights. They want to remove Trump, because after all, Trump has said, they're not after me, they're after you. Us, the American people, right? I mean, whenever they impeach, they go after this president. You don't hear them talking about all these great... Here's the thing. There's so many ways. There's probably 10,000 ways to approach this. It's just, I can't even fully get my head around this. Adam Schiff, he kept talking about how Trump did this, Trump did that. And I'm like saying, where in the world is your evidence? Other than your ridiculous attempts at trying to smear Trump. And all he had to say was like, oh, please believe me, because I'm talking in such a passionate voice. And we gotta remove this president because he's a Russian agent. And if you don't vote to impeach him, then we can't allow we can't wait to the elections. And I'm like, I'm not saying he said he was a Russian agent in Congress. I don't mean that to say he actually used those words. I'm just saying the way the Democrats have been with their rhetoric has been so pathetic. It really has. I cannot even begin to wrap my head around this, David. I really can't.
Exactly, and I'll touch on this too. When the Democrats basically voted for impeachment, every single member within the Democratic Party basically said no person is above the law. And yet, throughout this whole process, it's the Democrats that are above the law, not Donald Trump. It's the Democrats, the ones that are above the law.
Well, they think they're above the law, but they're not. They'll find out soon enough. I'll just put it in those terms.
Exactly.
And David, I do want to I want to go back to what you mentioned, because you brought up an excellent point about you called it law, but it's actually a treaty that was in, it looks like, and I'm just doing this on the fly here, but 1998, I think, or either 98.
1998.
Yeah. Signed at Kiev on July 22nd, 1998. And then he signed, President Clinton signed a letter of transmittal to the Senate on September 30th, 1999. This is from Congress.gov. I'm not going to read the text. I'm just going to read the sort of the summary on the first, the cover page, for lack of a better word. Here's what it says. Treaty with Ukraine on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. And here's what it says. Message from the President of the United States transmitting treaty between the United States of America and Ukraine on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters with annex, signed at Kiev on July 22, 1998, and with an exchange of notes signed on September 30, 1999, which provides for its provisional application. I know that's a lot of legalese right there, but I know enough about this to know this, that there is on the books a treaty between us and Ukraine where we collaborate on criminal matters. It is not just something that the president can do, which he can do because he has sole power to set foreign policy anyway, but we actually have a treaty on the books that the Senate confirmed, that they ratified, I should say, that allows for, in an official way, for the U.S., for the United States of America, and Ukraine to collaborate mutually on criminal matters. My point being this: President Trump had every right to inquire to Ukraine about what in the world's going on with this oil company. Why is Hunter Biden, and by the way, he didn't even really get specific. He just wanted to know, wanted them to look into it. But Hunter Biden, who has no previous experience in oil, as far as we know, does not speak Ukrainian, and yet made boatloads of money with this Burisma oil company. And David, if I may just very briefly, I don't think, and from what I understand, you can't hear it on your end, but I'm going to play for the audience right now a soundbite from none other than former Vice President Joe Biden bragging about getting a Ukrainian prosecutor fired for wanting to look into his son. And I want people to understand, this is the very thing they're accusing Trump of times 10. And I just want the audience to hear this. So here we go.
Gotten a commitment from Poroshenko, they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
All right, so that was a soundbite from Joe Biden. He just said, he basically said, if that top prosecutor is not fired in 6 hours, you're not getting the money. So, folks, I don't understand what the hypocrisy. It's hilarious. The hypocrisy level is off the charts. You have Vice President Joe Biden, former Vice President Joe Biden, saying, bragging about getting a prosecutor fired because his prosecutor was going to look into his son. And yet they're saying, oh no, we can't talk about that. We got to talk about Trump because he said so-and-so who we can't name said so-and-so said Trump did this. And yet if we do as much on social media as name the whistleblower, we're at high risk of getting that thing removed because YouTube, Twitter, they don't tolerate, if they know about it, the naming of I'm just going to say it. Eric Ciaramella. There you go. That's the alleged whistleblower. And here's something else, David, and I'll throw it back to you in a second. The Senator Rand Paul posed a question, I think twice, in different wording, to Chief Justice Roberts, asking Adam Schiff about, this Eric guy. And both times Roberts blocked it. And I think that I honestly, David, I'm not an attorney, but it sure has. I mean, when you're a judge, you're supposed to be impartial and apply the law equally. And to me, it sure seems like there's a little bit of something going on with obstruction of justice. I'm not an expert on this, but it sure seems like it to me. But my point being is that, folks, big things are happening, and if you think for 1 second that the Democrats aren't going to get blown or aren't going to get repaid big time for what they just did, then you're not paying attention because things are happening, and I think people are going to be indicted at some point. And David, I'll toss it back to you to hear what else you might have to say.
Exactly, and not only those Democrats, but as you mentioned, even potentially Chief Justice Roberts here for, as you mentioned, obstruction of justice. Because, as you said, he blocked Senator Rand Paul's questions twice. Not once, but twice. About, the whole thing. The whole, whistleblower thing.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, I don't blame Rand Paul one bit for walking out of the Senate chamber the way he did. Because he had every right to ask that question, and yet the Chief Justice, who's supposedly impartial and everything, which, by the way, he's not so far, he's not, the Chief Justice basically blocked a senator's question. And that to me constitutes obstruction of justice. And no, I'm not an attorney expert here either, but even I would know that right there constitutes obstruction of justice on the part of Chief Justice Roberts.
Well, and David, also too, I think it was completely insane that they didn't even allow the senators to personally ask the questions with a microphone. They had to write these questions down, which I think was ridiculous. But I think the senators should have had every right to ask their questions as long as they're respectful. Don't do any kind of name calling. They just ask their questions on a microphone at a podium, and that's that.
Exactly.
The judge is supposed to be the gatekeeper, and wherever required, apply the law, but apply it equally and without even the appearance of impropriety of being obstructing of justice and all that. But let me say this also. I think it was brilliant on Senator Rand Paul's part, because I'll tell you this. If this Eric, I'm going to say it one more time, folks. I'm going to risk it, but Eric Ciaramella, if he really is not the whistleblower, then why did Supreme Court Justice or Chief Justice Roberts react to it by declining to pose the question on his behalf? In other words, my point being this, if this guy is really not the whistleblower, then why are they acting like he is? By trying to cover up and not allowing people to ask critical questions. We have a right, folks, to know what's going on and, to face the accuser that these people that are trying to take Trump down, and in my opinion, and I know I sound a little out there for saying this, but I'm just going to say it's a coup d'etat. It really is. It's a soft coup d'etat. They tried to remove a duly elected president. They're trying to undo an election. They thankfully have failed, by God's grace, in my opinion. But we cannot allow this to ever happen again.
Exactly. And basically, that right there, as you mentioned right there, that's been the Democrats' goal ever since Trump got elected in 2016. The whole goal has been to overturn the results of the 2016 election, because in the minds of the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton won by popular vote. But because we go by the Electoral College system here, Trump actually won.
I want to clearly... Go ahead.
And so that's been the entire goal of the Democratic Party since that election, is to remove Trump, and not only that, but remove the Electoral College. I know I'm going off topic here, but that's their goal, is to remove the Electoral College to where only states like California, Illinois, New York, places like that get a say in elections.
Yeah.
Now, in the middle of the country where I live at, we don't get a say in it at all.
Right. And the Electoral College is a means of trying to balance things out so that the elite in the few large cities don't decide that you have to appeal to a wide body politic to win an election. And thank God we don't have that person in the Oval Office by that Hillary Clinton. There's no telling where we would be right now. Just saying. But let me just say this. We it's amazing how fast time flies here. But I just want to say this too. I think that there's going to be further developments next week, and folks, be very careful with the news media. They may try to spin, because here's the thing too. I think the timing is significant. They didn't want to dismiss the charges, acquit Trump, until the day after State of the Union. Now, it might be just purely coincidental. I tend to think not. But my point being is that they should have already acquitted him. There's no reason to hold this up whatsoever, legally speaking. And I think that they're trying to, because if he got acquitted before the State of the Union, the media would have to say, oh, acquitted President Trump, delivered State of the Union, calls for so-and-so to happen. So, whatever. But instead, they're going to say, oh, with the dark clouds of uncertainty, Trump delivers his State of the Union to a divided Congress. You know how they are. They spin stuff. I mean, it's just amazing to me. But David, we're about 30 minutes in. I want to get to our headlines before we get to our final topic of the day. We'll, of course, keep on top of, keep you advised on all the developments with impeachment, all the major developments as we go along. But right now, let's switch gears and talk about impeachment, or I should say the headlines from johnbwellsnews.com. Again, I highly recommend that website. It's a great alternative to the Drudge Report. I don't get any kickbacks or any benefits from saying that, except I believe in a good product. I like John B. Wells. I like his program. And I believe I like a good product when I see it, and he certainly have put in he's put in the effort to develop this, and I appreciate the effort. So with that said, let's get to some of these headlines here. The first one being from independent.co.uk. Katie Hopkins' Twitter account suspended. Move comes after Countdown star Rachel Riley and campaigners demand action from social network. From ZeroHedge.com. Friday Trump acquittal eyed after Lamar Alexander says no to witnesses. Collins roasted after yes vote. From AMGreatness.com. Morning Greatness. Nadler speed waddles to podium to still shifts closing impeachment limelight. From TheGatewayPundit.com. Trump goes there. Retweets Sperry's explosive report revealing whistleblower Eric Ciaramella plotted with Schiff aide Sean Misko to take out Trump. From THReadReaderApp.com. Eric Ciaramella is involved in much darker things than you can imagine. ZeroHedge.com has this story. Carter Page sues DNC over Steele dossier in opening salvo. From FoxNews.com. Antifa plans massive anti-cop action in New York subways. Push for free transit ending police presence. From AMGreatness.com. Tennessee State Representative submits bill to recognize CNN Washington Post as fake news. From Rutherford.org. The Super Bowl's biggest losers. The boys and girls being sold for sex 20 times a day by John W. Whitehead. From Spectator.org. Why wasn't Spygate impeachable? And just for context, folks, Spygate refers, I'm sure, to Obama. But continuing along here, a couple more. WashingtonExaminer.com. Rand Paul reads out his question naming alleged whistleblower Eric Ciaramella. From LibertyUnyielding.com. Why Rand Paul's unread question needed asking and wasn't about the whistleblowing. And actually just a couple more, folks. A couple more. From AmericanThinker.com. It's about corruption, replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment. And finally, from WashingtonExaminer.com, why Trump's Des Moines rally should make Democrats nervous. So, folks, there's plenty more headlines at johnbwellsnews.com. And I highly recommend the website. Check out this show, by the way, Caravan to Midnight. And I just really like John B. Wells. He's just a great person. He really is. He does great. He puts out great information, great content, and hope you guys check him out. Again, I don't get any pay for saying that. I just believe in a good product. With that said, we want to segue to one final topic for tonight, and that is with the death of Kobe Bryant. David Heller, of course, he kind of keeps tabs on the headlines in the sports realm of things. And David, I'm going to kind of hand it over to you to do this topic.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. As many of you know by now, Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna and 7 others were killed in a helicopter crash outside of Los Angeles at just about 10 o'clock that morning Pacific time, so 1 o'clock East Coast time, 12 o'clock noon Central time. And so there's been a lot that has come from this, involving this one here, for instance, from BBC.com. They have found out that fog basically played a role in that helicopter crash, and that therefore the helicopter that Kobe Bryant was in should have never taken off at all, because it was really, really foggy. It was like so foggy that, and Jonathan would probably know about this because he's just as much a weather fanatic as I am. Anytime you get fog conditions like that, it's dangerous to fly, and it's even dangerous to drive, especially if you get really, 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 really low visibility, to the point that you can't even see, in some cases, feet in front of the person in front of you. And so that was a pretty scary situation there. That, and also the reporter for ABC News, I don't have his name off the top of my head, but anyway, he got suspended for falsely reporting that
Matt Gutman.
all of Kobe's kids were in that helicopter, which obviously it wasn't true. Although his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, was in that helicopter, not all of Kobe's daughters was in that helicopter. And then of course last night the Lakers paid tribute to Kobe. You could probably look this up on that same BBC website, but you would be able to see how all the players like LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and others were wearing either the 24 or the number 8. And for those that don't know those numbers, those were the numbers that Kobe Bryant wore in his time with the Los Angeles Lakers. And on that note, we here at the Citizen Report want to send our thoughts and prayers to Kobe's wife, Vanessa, her other daughters that are still alive, and the rest of the other family members that were involved in that helicopter crash that lost their lives. And for that, I will toss back over to Jonathan.
All right, thank you, David. And just one final note, or final thing. Of course, the Super Bowl is coming up tomorrow. It might even be sooner than that, or even past by the time you hear this. And David, I just want to ask, which team are you rooting for?
I am picking, and again, for those that don't know, sports is one of my really strong subjects for me, as far as that is concerned. So, for the Super Bowl, I am going to pick Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes to win. I think it's going to be a great game down there in Miami, and I am looking forward to it.
Same here. I'm personally rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. All the best to them tomorrow in their Super Bowl game, and congratulations to them. A little bit late to say that, I guess, but congratulations to them on reaching on being able to go to the Super Bowl this year. Certainly. And of course, as David was talking about just a few moments ago, our thoughts and prayers are with Kobe Bryant's family and that whole situation over in California from earlier this week. So on that note, we like to thank you for tuning into the Citizen Report. We'll keep across all developments with impeachment, and we'll of course bring you the latest on what you need to know on the next the Citizen Report broadcast. For David Heller and myself, Jonathan Shannon, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your evening, and have a good night.
The Citizen Report is a production of New Shannon Media. All content protected under copyright.